We're ready when you are.
You're good? Maddie, you're good? Okay, excellent. We're going to get started then. 7:31, great. Thank you everybody for joining us. Sorry for the delay on the sound check. I kind of shift the mics around, so it's not Nick's fault, it's my fault. So real quick, the Open Public Meeting Statement. In accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meeting Act, Chapter 231, PL 1975 announcement, I wish to announce that the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Law was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend meetings of public bodies at which any business is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the School District of the Chatham's Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, place thereof posted in the Board Administrative Offices, the clerks of the Chatham Borough, Chatham Township, the Library of the Chathams, the Chatham Courier, the Daily Record, the Star Ledger, and the TAP. In Mr. DeQuilla's absence, Ms. Gilbert, would you mind taking attendance?
Ma'am. Ms. Chigarelli? Here. Ms. Clark? Here. Mr. D'Alessandro? Ms. Kenny? Here. Ms. Ross? Here. Mr. Ryan?
Here.
Mr. Smith? Here. Ms. Weber?
Here. If you're able, please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is behind Tatiana. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Play ball. Okay, great. Great. So at last meeting, we announced that Mr. Gilfillan had resigned his position, and Michelle Clark went over the requirements of the position and asking anybody to reach out. So we're going to take care of that up front. So Michelle, I'm going to yield the floor to you regarding the open board position.
Sure.
So if you want to make your motion, and then we can open it for discussion.
In accordance to the board policy, the members of the Board of Education representing Chatham Township formed a search committee for the replacement of Matt Gilfillan. The committee interviewed 2 candidates, and based on these interviews, the committee would like, on behalf of the committee, I would like to make a motion to nominate Ying Liu for the appointment to fill Mr. Gilfillan's remaining term, which is scheduled to expire on December 31st, 2022.
Excellent. Thank you, Michelle. I'll second it, and then we can open it up for discussion. So if you wouldn't mind giving us some background.
I'm happy to do so. Throughout the interview process, I want to also thank people for putting in to run for Board of Ed or to participate in this process, not even run, but participate, because there's a time where people are not exactly running into boardrooms to volunteer for these positions. So we're extremely grateful for the candidates who did so and came forward, and we are eager, to get more people engaged in the process as well in the future. Ying Liu came to us highly qualified. She has an advanced degree with a PhD in electrical engineering and an advanced degree in finance. She has an extensive career both in engineering and finance, and is currently working in finance. She has also volunteered in our schools at Southern Boulevard in Lafayette and has 2 children, one who has graduated from the Chatham school system and one who's currently in. She shows great leadership potential and collaboration skills through her volunteerism and through her professional responsibilities. And we're eager to invite her, have her be part of our board.
Excellent, thank you.
And
I'm sorry,
have any
Michelle,
questions? Yep.
did you mention how many folks threw their hat in the ring?
2.
2, okay, sorry if I missed that. How fortunate that we have, at least two folks that wanted to jump in and help out. Does anybody else have any questions for anybody on the town? It's really to the borough, because the township committee met, so. Oh, here's the borough right here.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
Usually Chris is over there, but I don't have any. Mike, are you good?
I have no questions.
I have no questions either, okay.
And I can't remember but those who served on the committee, can you just raise your hand for the record?
So all the remaining township folks. Okay, great.
So,
Excellent. So then the motion is to pass Ying Liu as the new member. So all those in favor?
aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? No, well, you're in it now, Ying Liu. You're in the soup now. So we just if you wouldn't mind coming up on stage, we're going to do by we, I mean Tatiana, is going to do the swearing in portion. Sure. Thank you, Beth, +1.
Best friend.
Please state your name and raise your right hand. Sorry.
Ying Liu Zhang,
Now repeat after me. Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support
that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same,
and allegiance to the same,
and to the governments established
and to the governments established
in the United States
in the United States
and this state
and this state
under the authority of the people.
under the authority of the people.
So help me God.
So help me God.
If you could repeat your name one more time, sorry.
Ying Liu Zhang,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I possess the qualifications
that I possess the qualifications
prescribed by law
prescribed by law
for the office of member of a Board of Education,
for the office of member of a Board of Education.
am not disqualified as a voter
Am not disqualified as a voter
pursuant to RS
pursuant to RS
19
19
4-1,
4-1,
and that I will faithfully,
and that I will faithfully,
impartially, and justly
impartially, and justly
perform all the duties of that office
perform all the duties of that office
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Ying Liu, if you don't mind joining us at the table right next to Mr. Smith here. You have an agenda. Welcome aboard. Stealing the mic already. Welcome aboard. Thank you. Ying Liu. Yeah, if you wouldn't mind just sitting next to Bradley, that'd be fantastic. Thank you. There'll be more paperwork and online classes, which we didn't tell you about, of course, beforehand. But Peter will get back to you with some of that. Excellent. And I do not have any president's comments, so I'd like to get right to it. I know we have a packed agenda with presentations, so Dr. LaSousa, I'm going to head it right over to you for your report.
Thank you. Yes, so we'll go in reverse order for my report, and we'll begin with Dr. Walker, who will become high school principal at the end of June. As you know, Mr. Walker, or Dr. Walker, typically gives this presentation at some point during the spring. Because we've had a lot going on, we haven't been able to get him in until tonight, so I'll ask him to give us the report on the graduates, and then after that, we have Dr. Sortino and Mr. Henderson, who are just going to give a summary of all the support systems we've tried to put in place for students over the past year, drawing on our ESSER funds and other resources so that we're responding to students appropriately given what their challenges may be. So I'll start with Mr. Walker, and I guess the board can head on down into the seats.
Okay, good evening, everyone. So I'm going to present the report of the graduates from the class of 2021. Before I start, I just want to preface that this presentation has a lot of data in it. So some of it's meant to be consumed now, but it's also really meant to be referenced later on. I think there's some value in the information here for some of our juniors and sophomores as they approach the college process. So I will have this presentation shared on our website so it could be referenced moving forward. So for the class of 2021, we had 94% of our students who moved on to four-year universities, 3% and 3% of two-year or other choices. The GPA bands for our students in the class of 2021 are contained within this slide, the largest bands being in the 3.0 to 4.0 range. And you can see the number of students and the percentages for each band across out of a total of 360 students. Being that the 3.0 to 4.0 range is our largest segment, I took a small sample of the colleges, universities that students in that range have received acceptances to. This is just a sample of some of the ones on there, but you can also see that they represent a lot of really good quality education institutions on this list alone. The one cohort that I pulled data from each year is our special education snapshot, and this represents the seniors who graduated with an active IEP. And out of that student body, 88% of those students continued their education with a 4-year degree, and then 6% 2-year and 6% other. This represents a sample of universities that some of our special education students received acceptance to. All of these universities also had general education students accepted to them as well. But these are a really nice sample of what I think are some pretty strong universities that our students were afforded the opportunity to attend. Overall, our trend continues around the same path of private versus public, with the majority, the higher majority, 59%, choosing to move on to private universities and 41% moving on to public universities. And these numbers have been fairly consistent over the last number of years. In terms of region, also a lot of consistency over the years. The majority of our students are attending universities in what we'll classify as the East, and that's the New England, Delaware, District of Columbia, Maryland, New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey. We saw a little bit of an increase in the Midwest compared to last year, but more consistent to what was in 2019. But overall, our students are primarily around the East Coast and then the South. So overall, for last year's class, 360 students, we processed 3,494 college applications with about 1,584 acceptances. So that averages out to 9.7 applications per student, and with students receiving approximately 4.4 average acceptances. That's the whole average, the average of the whole. Breaking that down a little bit more, we had 131 early decision applications. This is the binding agreement. This is when accepted that you must attend that school. That saw about a 60% acceptance rate from those 131. Early decision 2, another binding, a little later round, 29% acceptance rate. And our largest application pool from this category is early action with 1,226 applications. And again, a 60% acceptance rate for those applications. Now, in this slide, we highlight the number of schools that individual students apply to, and broke them down from a band of 20 plus. You could see 15, 19, 5, 9, down to 1, 4, and how many students are in each of those categories and what their acceptance rate is. And the real highlight on this is there's definitely a point of diminishing returns in terms of the number of schools you apply to and the acceptance rates that you received. So we always talk to our students about really making a pretty defined list, a list of schools that you'd be willing to go to if you had to, and focusing your energy on a smaller number and really researching them rather than a significant number of applications, which can really be quite taxing in that process. And some of the numbers here show that there's an advantage to being focused. So our top 10 most attended schools in the class of 2021, Rutgers, New Brunswick was the first place school for this category. Few new schools making the list, a large number of students moving on to Syracuse. Some schools we've seen year after year, like University of Delaware, University of Wisconsin. Madison is a newcomer on this list, I believe. So I wanted to include one list that includes some level of a ranking system. There's a lot of different college rankings out there. There's a lot of data on the pros and cons of how you interpret these rankings. But one of the most popular rankings out there is US News. And what we did was we looked at what US News ranked in 2021, the top 25 national universities. And on this slide, I'm representing the schools on that list that our students received acceptances to, and how many of those students, to give an idea on some of the opportunities associated with our students in what's considered top national universities by US News. So here's where we get into some slides where I think these are a good point of reference for some of our underclassmen as they start to look at the college application process. So the schools on this list are the ones that received the most applications from Chatham High School. And University of Delaware tops that list with 76 students from the class of 2021 applying. I do show how many were accepted and how many actually chose to attend, and what the acceptance rate for those schools were. So I think it's important to notice that when you're a Chatham High School student and you apply to one of these schools, you're applying not only against the national candidate pool of students, but you're also applying against your own classmates. And you know, sometimes I do get the question of, you know, how does our relationships with these schools sustain when we have such a low number of kids who actually attend? And I really haven't seen over the years any change in that. Some of these schools on this list, you know, receive 100,000 applications a year. So they're used to many of their kids who get accepted not attending. And some of them have have shifted significantly. I point out Northeastern here, which in 1 year went from what was, I think, a 20 or 25% acceptance rate down to 7% acceptance rate just in this past year. So we've seen some of these schools where Northeastern, I'm picking on in particular, had 100,000 applications in just this year. Penn State averages around 100,000 applications a year as well. So they're sort of used to receiving a lot of students who apply, and you know, we have definitely a number of students here who have applied to these schools. So again, a slide that's a point of reference. If we want to find out, you know, what are the schools that our kids are applying to most, I provided a list of the schools that have received 30 or more applications from Chatham High School students. And then I broke it down to the schools that are in the 20 to 29 application category. Here are our matriculations within the state of New Jersey. So Rutgers, Newark, and New Brunswick would be the #1. And I just gave a listing of where in New Jersey some of our students are deciding to attend from the class of 2021. Some general data regarding SAT scores. We can see our CHS averages, New Jersey, and national averages for the SAT. And the same data for the ACT. So last, I just want to highlight some additions in our counseling program. One of the things that we've spent a lot of time on, and I have to credit Ms. Slate, our college and career counselor, for really running with this, is we've launched our college and career Google website. And we've really curated a lot of significant resources on there to help guide this process. You'll find on there a number of short tutorials, video tutorials that take you through the application process, the college search process, and we've really been curating quite a library there. So the feedback that we've received from many of our seniors who went through the process is it was really, really helpful to have access to that. And that's up and running and always available. We've also created sections on our page and have done some presentations on college planning for students with learning differences, where we talk about schools and programs that are available for students with those needs. We also maintain a summer programs database, so these are opportunities for students to join programs over the summer that could help build their experiences, build their college application, and so we have a database of those as well. And one of the new things that we launched last year and has really ramped up is a CHS Alumni Ambassador. So we ask our seniors as they leave every year if they'd be willing to have their contact information shared so that students in the lower grade levels that are thinking about applying to the schools that they're going to could reach out to them to ask questions or to get some feedback about their experiences there at the schools. And so we publish this on our college and career website, and we continue to expand that. One of the things that we started to do last summer is start to provide some resources and some opportunities regarding the college application process a little bit earlier. We recognize that it's an anxious process for a number of students, and the Common Application opening up August 1st, that there are some students who want to jump ahead on this a bit before school starts so they could focus on their academics at that time. So over the summer last year, we did some workshops where students were able to come into the media center, and we had Mrs. Slate there, myself was there, some of the counselors that were in, and if their students wanted to work on their applications during that time, we had those resources there to give them some assistance. And so we did that, and we did some webinars, because at the time we were doing some virtual stuff. So we did some webinars also during that time about the college application process. I think it's important to just point out, though, that if you don't attend any of these, you're not behind. It's okay. The deadlines are the deadlines. Colleges tell us all the time, if the deadline is November 1st, they're not reading the applications until November 1st. So whether you submit it on September 1st or submit it on October 30th, there's no advantage to that if they have a set deadline. So you have your time, but we wanted to give opportunities for kids to do this when it was best for them. So that's been pretty successful. We continue to have conferences with our seniors, our juniors, and our freshmen, kind of building to this process. Each year, we've maintained our financial aid presentation. We bring in a speaker from a university, from the financial aid department, to talk about not just federal aid and state aid, but also other forms of aid and financial merit aid, things like that, related to funding the college experience. And we also continue to have workshops and appointments with Ms. Slate, our college and career counselor. She makes herself available during lunch in her room, and then also by appointments following senior conferences or junior conferences for some additional consultation. This year, we had 151 college admissions reps visit Chatham High School for students to attend. We were still in somewhat of a hybrid model. There were some universities where they weren't permitted to come physically to the school, so they did virtual. So we had 94 in person, we had 57 virtual this year. Included in these visits, we also had some vocational programs. We've had military organizations, and we also had a few different law enforcement career paths come in to meet with students. We've also, for students who have expressed an interest in some of these non-four-year college pathways, the counselors have set up personalized visits for the students to visit these institutions to learn more about them. So we maintain our relationships with the vocational programs and alternative education programs that are out there for students that show an interest. I've spoken about this last year of something that I was looking to implement here in our counseling department, which is including not just college visits, but also career visits. And we've successfully launched a few of these where we have professionals coming into the high school to meet with students to talk about their pathway to the career that they're in. So this year, so far this spring, we try to run them in the spring. We've had a graphic design professional. We had a person who's got an experience in business logistics who came in, and in the past we've had a school psychologist and physical therapist. And so a couple counselors that I've tasked with this have been really doing a great job at trying to market them and source some individuals. And one of the things that we're going to look to do is if we have individuals who maybe can't make it in, we're going to do some video interviews, and we're going to record those and build a library of these on our college website. So moving forward, we expect to see more in-person rep visits this year as the restrictions have eased. We're going to continue to increase access to vocational options and our career visits and make some exposure to students who want to pursue that pathway. We're always looking to continue to add additional resources regarding how to navigate this process to simplify it for everyone on our college career website. And another task that we really try to take on is how we expose students to some schools that we think are really great schools to really take a look at, but aren't really well represented by our CHS students, and continue to build exposure with them by bringing them in for our college rep visits and promoting some of the programs and attributes of those schools. And lastly, every year, besides our junior parent night, try to do one other event for junior families. We've done a few different things. More recently, we did a panel of admissions reps, and in the past, we've had speakers. So this year, for our junior parents on Monday, this coming Monday, we have the VP for Enrollment and Admissions for Dickinson College come in to speak, and he's going to talk about aspects of the college search process, things that he sees from the inside. He's going to give advice in the process, and the feedback that I've received from his presentations is quite strong, so we're looking forward to having him here Monday night, and that will be at 6:30 in the CHS cafeteria. Thank you.
Doug, thank you. We'll transition now into the other presentation for this evening. And I'll just mention, first of all, Doug, thank you to you and your team at the high school. It's always heartening to see what our students are doing when they head out. This presentation that's coming up is kind of not the other end of the spectrum, but what's involved in part across the board with students. And we've been talking about this for many years now. There's a national trend, if not crisis, according to major health organizations, in mental health of adolescents. This is something that predated the pandemic, but has only been worsened by the pandemic. And of course, we've been trying to direct resources toward these challenges, particularly over the last couple of years. So I asked Dr. Sortino and Mr. Henderson if they could come in and just talk about some of what they've been involved with over the course of the past year in particular. And then once they finish, we can bring the board back, and then you guys can ask questions of any of the presenters. So I'll turn it over to Dr. Sortino.
Great. So hello, everyone. I'm Emily Sortino. I'm the Assistant Superintendent of Student Support Services for Chatham. I started last May. It was a very busy year. It's now been one full year since I've been in the district. And part of my journey was understanding the needs of the district, the needs of the students, and how we could best support them, especially in the midst of a global pandemic. So the agenda for today is I'll review some nationwide statistics, district statistics. I'll discuss some current, new, and potential future programs, and then Mr. Henderson, the Dean of Students at Chatham High School, will take over to talk about specific programs at the high school. The Office of Student Support Services consists of two supervisors, Dr. Lanza and Dr. Jaffe, and then Ms. Lattarulo and Mrs. Leister. They are the supervisors of health and well-being. Our office oversees special education, 504 plans, the harassment, intimidation, bullying, law and response, counseling service, basic skills, and intervention. So in the midst of this pandemic, both nationwide and locally, we're seeing a trend in the mental health needs of our students. Specifically, the Surgeon General came out with an advisory about protecting youth's mental health, and some of those issues that they identified were that students had mental health challenges before the pandemic, and the pandemic may have exacerbated that. Parents that were frontline workers, you might be worried about COVID-19 as a child, and that adds a level of stress to your already stressful routine. There was disruptions in routines when we all shut down. You might have more adverse childhood experiences, known as ACEs, if you're stuck at home during that time. You may experience more financial instability, food shortages, or housing, and you might also experience trauma, such as losing a family member or caregiver. In 2019, 13% of adolescents reported having a major depressive episode, which was a 60% increase from 2007. Emergency room visits by children and adolescents also rose sharply for anxiety, mood disorders, and self-harm. And for people ages 10 to 24, suicide rates, which had been previously stable from 2000 to 2007, leaped nearly 60%, all by 2018. It's evident that there was an issue prior to the pandemic. The pandemic has, in fact, been a piece that may have exacerbated some of those mental health statistics. In October of 2021, the American Academy of Pediatrics, the American Academy of Child and Adolescent Psychiatry, and the Children's Hospital Association all came together and declared a national emergency in child and adolescent mental health. They primarily stated there was a national emergency because of the increase in mental health-related visits to the emergency room, which in early 2021, among teens ages 12 to 17, increased 31% compared with the same period in 2019. So a significant increase from 2019 to 2021. Suicide was also the second leading cause of death for people ages 10 to 14. And there's also been some studies that have indicated that there's less sleep occurring with children, which is also contributing to some of the mental health concerns. So the percent of high school students reported sleeping at least 8 hours declined by 30%. So there's been all of these trends that have helped to potentially contribute to this issue. So among adolescents aged 12 to 17 years, again, in 2018, 2019, reporting on the past year, 15% had a major depressive episode, 36% had persistent feelings of sadness, 18% seriously considered attempting suicide, 16% approximately made a suicide plan, approximately 9% attempted suicide, and 2.5% made a suicide attempt that required medical treatment. Beginning in April of 2020, the proportion of children's mental health-related emergency department visits increased and remained elevated through October. Compared with 2019, the proportion of mental health-related visits for children ages 5 to 11 and 12 to 17 years increased approximately 24% and 31%, respectively. So the prevalence of depression and anxiety during COVID-19 in our youth have doubled compared with pre-pandemic estimates, significantly later in the pandemic, as well as in older adolescents and in girls. Pooled estimates obtained in the first year of the COVID-19 pandemic suggest that 1 in 4 youth around the world are experiencing clinically elevated depression symptoms, while 1 in 5 are experiencing clinically elevated anxiety symptoms. These are the high school depression rates by subgroup. As you can see, as we go through the years from 2004 to 2021, they significantly increase. The most at-risk group is the LGBTQ plus population. Now, within our own district, students took a survey, a student wellness survey, in partnership with Madison Chatham Coalition in 2016, 2019, and again in May of 2021. There were 1,550 respondents. All of them were in the secondary grades, so 6 through 12. And the survey really focused primarily on the impact of the pandemic school year. As you can see, from 2019 to 2021, the feelings of stress elevated across the board. Students reported that they actually had the most pressure from themselves, academic pressure in specific. They all reported that they slept less as you go through the years, so 2016 to 19 to 2021. And the question was specifically asked, have you spent more than 2 weeks feeling so sad and hopeless that you stopped doing normal activities? In 2021, approximately 24% of our students reported that they felt so sad and hopeless that they stopped doing their normal routines. 24% of the 1,550 respondents, it's approximately 370 students. Just for a point of reference, that's the size of Southern Boulevard School. So one whole school in the district of that 1,550 felt persistently sad and hopeless. 8% of the students reported that they had considered suicide in the past 12 months. Again, 8% of that 1,550 is approximately 120 students, 125, which is a significant number. So this school year, within our own district, with our own students, we've had over 125 risk assessments completed thus far by school district staff. Within the district, we use an email filtration system known as Securely. So anytime a student searches a keyword like sad or jump or lonely or upset, that email is flagged, and administrators are on the email as well as mental health professionals that are associated specifically with that school. So 16 students that required risk assessments were identified solely by Securely alerts. 4 of those students then were sent for further assessment. So no one's in any trouble when they're writing a friend that they're feeling sad, but what is important is that the district is made aware that a student is feeling sad, and that we in turn then meet with the student to say, is everything okay? Do you need any help? As a result of those Securely alerts, we've been able to identify students that required school-based counseling or potentially a higher level of service within our own district. Overall, 21 of the 125 students that the district identified as being at a risk of harming themselves were sent for further assessment. So they were sent to a mental health professional to be formally screened to see if they were at a formal risk of hurting themselves. And more than half of the students assessed within the district received more intensive counseling services that are already available, or were referred for a 504 plan, potentially for the child study team, the student assistance counselors, our telehealth program, or our school counseling program. Throughout this school year, there's been over 24 students that were known to be hospitalized in either partial programs or full hospitalization programs this year. Part of the Surgeon General's advisory is that they made recommendations of specifically what educators, school staff, and school districts can do to help support students that are in the middle of a mental health crisis or that require a further level of support within the schools. The Surgeon General said that we should create positive, safe, and affirming school environments, of course, expand social and emotional learning programs and evidence-based approaches that promote healthy development, learn how to recognize signs of changes in mental and physical health, and take appropriate action when needed. Provide a continuum of supports to meet student mental health needs, and expand the school-based mental health workforce. And that's something that I'll talk more about tonight. So currently within the district, we have a variety of wellness initiatives within the classrooms that students experience throughout the district. So Good Grief's Roots to Resilience, we have a Mindfulness on the Brain initiative at CMS. The high school, Mr. Henderson will talk about this Danny Hook promise of Start with Hello. These are all the activities that your child or children have experienced throughout the school year, the global programs. Within the elementary schools specifically, the school counselors there run executive functioning groups. They work with students on building self-esteem, self-control. They've taught zones of regulation, friendship groups. They specifically use the curriculum Second Step for classroom lessons. They've taught growth mindset, kindness, friendship. And then they actually have building-wide initiatives such as Give Back and Give Thanks, where it's a donation drive to specifically benefit organizations both locally and nationally that require our support. These are all the things that the elementary schools do on a daily basis to make sure that our students are doing well. In the secondary world, we held a Summer Connect program last summer. These are for students, the rising 9th graders and rising 6th graders. We had over 43 students at CMS and 31 students at the high school that came and worked on team building activities in the summer. They were able to tour the buildings, learn some of the staff members, receive an orientation to some of the learning systems. All of this was to ease the transition, the fear, the potential anxiety over returning to school, especially if it was to a building that they hadn't been to, if they were virtual. We'll hold that program again this summer. We currently have 16 school counselors. We have 2 student assistance counselors, one at CMS and one at CHS, 4 social workers, and 7 school psychologists. All of them are located throughout the district. As Dr. LaSousa had mentioned earlier, through ESSER, which was ARP ESSER, which was money from the government, which allowed us to address the impact of COVID-19 on schools, we were able to provide expanded services and offerings to meet the needs of our struggling students, specifically this year. So all of the things that were listed were initiatives that had come out of that funding. We've hired a part-time behaviorist in addition to the full-time behaviorist that our district currently employs. That behaviorist has been able to consult with general education staff that are having behavioral issues such as anxiety, school refusal. They participate in the INRS committee when it's appropriate. We've held a variety of parent workshops, parenting Gen Z children, executive functioning, post-secondary planning, and then we've also provided staff with a large amount of professional development. We had a grief specialist come and speak with the counselors, CST, and nurses on strategies on how to work with our students. All of the mental health professionals within the district were trained on the Columbia Suicide Severity Rating Scale. That's the tool that we use when a student is identified at potentially risk of self-harm. All of the elementary counselors, as well as the elementary interventionists, receive zones of regulation training, as well as how to specifically support general education students in the classroom with any variety of behaviors that they may have been demonstrating. In addition to all of this, we also have a very robust telehealth program, which began in April of 2021. It continued through the summer and is currently ongoing throughout this school year. We have 13 district mental health professionals that have provided services to students after school virtually. 60 students have been served in the program so far, and over 300 hours of therapy have been provided. It's an amazing program that students have access to. Parents can make a referral to this program, as well as district staff. Students have also been identified from mental health professionals in the district that they felt would benefit for more additional services outside of school, and they've referred them personally. Through ESSER funds, we've also been able to build a Tier 3 mental health service known as Aspire. We have 2 mental health professionals. Their pictures are up there. It's Miss Payano Rivera and Miss Candel. Both of them provide individual counseling on a regular basis to students, as well as a family component, to ensure that our students remain successful in their home school, receiving the mental health services that they need to be successful and safe within our district. There's been over 20 students served in the program, and it's been highly successful at bringing kids back to school that have, potentially had some mental health concerns, been hospitalized, experienced school refusal, or had anxiety as a result of the pandemic or pre-pandemic. And finally, for next year, we're working on an 18 to 21 program for students with IEPs known as Cougar Academy. Mrs. O'Reilly will teach that program, and it is a very exciting thing for all of us to be able to service our students within the district. And then we are also looking at building a therapeutic space at Chatham High School that will consist of 1 more Aspire counselor, 1 special education teacher. This will be a Tier 3 intervention service for students at the high school that may be struggling with mental health concerns, school refusal, any school-based anxiety. This would be a space where they could continue to come to school but receive the mental health supports and educational supports that they need to be successful. So that's one of our proposed future programs for next year. And I just want to take an opportunity to thank, in particular, all of the special education teachers, mental health professionals, school counselors, student assistance counselors, and school counselors. They have been phenomenal this year in meeting the very intense and varied needs of our students. They've worked day in and day out and at night to make sure that families felt supported and children felt supported, and that everyone was safe and happy coming to school. So I just want to thank everyone for their amazing work. And here's Mr. Henderson.
All right, thank you. I'm Connor Henderson, the Dean of Students at Chatham High School, and I'm going to be speaking about the supports that were put in place for this school year. We recognize that the 2021 school year was a really challenging year for our students. We had a number of students that were fully virtual for the entire year and didn't step foot into a school building. Most of our students were hybrid, and there was going to be a transition period for every student coming back to a full day environment. So coming into this year, we established a few goals and ways to ensure that all students were receiving the appropriate supports. So the first one was to provide additional support for incoming 9th graders. Transitioning into high school is never easy. We wanted to ensure that this group of incoming 9th graders who had a very not unconventional 8th grade year received additional supports. We also wanted to closely monitor students who were fully virtual for the 2021 school year. Next, we wanted to provide early intervention for students who displayed attendance concerns early on. You're going to hear me talk a lot about attendance, and we feel like that's a key indicator and a sign that a student is struggling. We have a lot of supports available at the high school. One of our biggest challenges last year is that, if students weren't in the building, it was harder to check in on them, keep tabs, provide them with the appropriate supports. So we really wanted to put a big emphasis on attendance this year. And then finally, identify any student in need of support and utilized our tiered system of support throughout the high school. So one of the substantial changes that we made over the summer was to our Lynx peer mentoring program. This program has been around for many years. It consists of juniors and seniors who apply into the program, and they would go into our health classes and make presentations about time management and social skills, adjusting to high school. This year, we were looking to create a stronger bond between the Lynx leader and their ninth graders. We wanted to know that every ninth grader in the building had at least 2 upperclassmen who we identified as strong leaders, 2 upperclassmen that they could go to for questions, that they could go to for support. So we made some adjustments to the program. The first being that Lynx leaders will meet with ninth graders during their common PE period. This allowed us to have more frequent meeting dates. They met once every 3 weeks for a total of 11 or 12 times this year. We also decreased the size of the group, so each Lynx leader had a partner, so a pair of Lynx leaders was assigned a group of 10 to 15 freshmen. And we felt like meeting, every 3 weeks throughout the school year allowed them to get to know each other, to form stronger bonds, so that those students really felt comfortable reaching out for support from their Lynx leaders. This was a huge undertaking, and it was led by Mrs. Irene and Mrs. Martin. They deserve a lot of credit for the improvements made to this program, but also the 42 juniors and seniors who served as Lynx leaders. They met every Wednesday during lunch for the entire school year to design lessons, receive training from Mrs. Irene and Mrs. Martin, review and recap lessons on the effectiveness. This took a lot of dedication on the part of the students, and all of the lessons were designed by our Lynx leaders, which we hoped would help them connect more with the ninth graders. Over the summer, we have a few programs that we traditionally run. The New Family Orientation, which is for all new students. One addition this year was that each new entry was assigned a Lynx leader once again, so they would have a student that they could connect with. They knew they had someone to eat lunch with as they got adjusted to the high school and could reach out for any questions. We ran our special education orientation, which included a tour of the building. Students looked over their schedule, met some of their special education teachers, and then got acclimated to our learning management system, Schoology. Dr. Sortino spoke a bit about the Summer Connect program, but at the high school, it was 31 incoming ninth graders and then 36 Lynx leaders, and that program was the first part of the morning was team building exercises outside on the ropes course with Mrs. Amster, and then Mrs. Irene and the Lynx leaders took the students on a tour and spoke to them about student life at CHS. We also had an open house for all ninth graders led by the Lynx leaders, but in addition to that, we ran individual tours for students and families. It seemed like the group of students that took advantage of the individual tours the most were 10th graders who were fully virtual. They hadn't actually stepped foot in the building as a high school student, so it was important for them to walk the halls and better understand our full day schedule. Sticking with the goal of providing additional support to the ninth grade students, I'm just going to speak about some of the programs that we put in place this year. On the first day of school, ninth graders were assigned homerooms where the Lynx leaders spoke with them about life at CHS, answered any questions they had, and hoped to ease some of their first day of high school jitters. There was also an instructional technology orientation for every ninth grader where we got them set up on Schoology, Google Calendar, and helped them, provided some organizational tips in Google Drive. I visited every 9th and 10th grade learning skills learning skills class, which is a class that many of our special education students are in, and just spoke to them about getting connected to the school, understanding the supports and resources available to them. And we did that for 9th and 10th grade, understanding that the 9th graders were new to the building, but the 10th graders kind of missed out on some of these transitions and orientations last year. Some of them were fully virtual, so we wanted to make sure that they received that information as well. The Lynx peer mentoring program that I mentioned. In addition to the regular lessons, our Lynx leaders also set up a lunch table every Tuesday and Thursday that was open for any student. It was there for a student that had a question, that just wanted a place to eat. Maybe they sit with a friend and their friend was absent that day and they didn't want to sit alone. This was available for any student in the counseling office. Next, our grade 9 level B support team is a group of teachers, 9th grade teachers that teach our level B classes. Many of them share a lot of the same students. We meet once every 4 days to discuss the students that they share and talk about effective strategies that they've used, who students might work well with, and then identify any student that may be struggling. This has been an incredible support to have this year. We've identified many students through this group that meets once every 4 days. And it's really, I'm a part of that team, and it's really nice to be able to get timely feedback from teachers that can then be relayed to counselors and case managers. It really creates effective communication throughout the entire support team. And then finally, every 9th grader has an individual meeting with their school counselor to discuss their transition and their goals for high school. The Sandy Hook Promise program, the Start with Hello program, which is a part of the Sandy Hook Promise organization, we selected 3 lessons from that curriculum, and our health teachers and our school counselors co-taught those lessons to 10th grade health classes. The reason we had school counselors co-teach with the health teachers, one, we thought the novelty of having a guest instructor might increase engagement throughout the lessons. And two, we wanted our students to see our school counselors discussing topics like healthy alone time versus social isolation, healthy relationships. We thought it was important for them to see their school counselor as someone that they could have those conversations with. And we felt like this was a very effective program. Okay, next, monitoring students who were fully virtual in the 2021 school year. We had 93 current students who finished the 2021 school year, so either their 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th grade year, they were fully virtual. And those students were monitored on a student list in Genesis, where we could check, attendance, academics, conduct, keep tabs. And out of the 20 students in the building who accrued 8 or more absences by November 30th, you're going to see me reference this data point several times. 2 of those students were fully virtual in 2021. So we didn't see much of a correlation between early on attendance concerns and students that were fully virtual. 15 students went on to accrue 16 or more absences by May 1st in a course. 5 of those students were fully virtual. So, as we went throughout the year, and there is a variety of reasons why students may accumulate absences, but we saw a little more of a correlation between that group and the total. So the next few slides are going to focus on attendance. And we used, one data point that we used was the number of students with 8 or more absences in a class. So when I reference absences, we always tie it to course attendance. These may not be full day absences, but absences from a class with our rotating schedule. So the number of students with 8 or more absences by November 30th, we use that as a data point. And you can see going back over the last 5 years, 14 in 2017, 11, 19, 9. So the number really tends to fluctuate. This year it was 20, so our highest number in the last 6 school years. Then we went on to look at how many of those students that met that requirement, 8 absences by November 30th, how many of them went on to reach 17 absences or more in multiple classes. And you'll see the number 3 in 2017, 7 out of 11 in 2018, 7 out of 19 the following year, 8 out of 9 in 2019-20. And this year, that number was 4. So, we felt like this data point reflected the effectiveness of our early intervention, identifying students who displayed attendance concerns early on in the year, finding them the appropriate resources, because for each student, it's different needs, different scenario. Every case is different, but finding them the appropriate support was effective with that group. And then in the next slide, we're just looking at the total number of CHS students who by May 1st reached 17 absences or more in a class. And they didn't necessarily hit that number of 8 by November 30th, but throughout the year, they eventually got to 17 or more. And once again, you see this number fluctuates a bit, but over the past 5 years, the average is about 14 and a half. And this year, we are at 13, so just below that average. Considering all of the challenges coming into this school year, we don't want any student to display attendance concerns, but it's good to see that, we were able to, hold the line and stay just below the average. Okay, and next are some of the strategies that we used when students displayed attendance concerns. And some of this extends to conduct and academics as well. So these are just several strategies that we may use given the case. Meet individually with the student, contact the parent. We have letters that are automated in the Genesis Parent Portal for absences when a student hits 8, 13, and 16 absences in a course. Our counselors assist students in completing missing work following an extended absence, because that can be very overwhelming for a student. We've had conversations about sleep habits and routine, morning routine or nightly routine. We've assisted students in making social connections, because that may be, the root of their school avoidance or attendance concerns. And then finally, when appropriate, assigning discipline for cuts or excessive tardies. Some of the Tier 2 strategies, so going beyond Tier 1, would be referring students to the INRS committee, referring students to the student assistance counselor for counseling, modifying a student's schedule, a wellness check from Chatham PD, and on a few occasions, a home visit from a staff member. All right, and then finally, this is just an overview of our system of support throughout the entire building. So Tier 1, every student has a general education teacher, special education teacher, school counselor, case manager, nurse. These are the people that are seeing the students on a daily basis and maybe reporting to a counselor that so-and-so has seemed off recently, or they noticed that they've missed 3 classes in a row. Is everything okay? In our grade 9 level B team, they're also sharing strategies of success. And all of these people are incredibly important in our system of support because they're seeing the students so frequently. And then once we identify that a student may need additional support, we might go to Tier 2, utilizing the student assistance counselor, the telehealth counseling, the INRS committee, and then finally, if those strategies, if we feel we need to go beyond those strategies, we could refer a student for a 504 plan, refer them for an evaluation from our child study team, or refer them to the Aspire counseling program that Dr. Sortino just referenced. And then finally, these are just a few examples of the programs that we ran this year for student support. We have the grade 9 level B team that I referenced. Our rest and relaxation room is just a quiet eating space open every day during lunch for students. And Ms. Marsh and Mrs. Murphy actually ran programs in there each Wednesday. Our Fast Friends is a lunch social skills group. We had counseling groups run by our student assistance counselor, our Lynx lunch table, our Lynx new student buddy program, our Lifelines curriculum, which is for 9th graders, which focuses on suicide ideation and the warning signs and what to look out for, and then the Sandy Hook Promise program that I referenced for 10th graders. So, the challenges of this year were met with a lot of support for our students, and you can see, just going back to this slide, that it really does take a collective effort from the entire staff, and I do want to thank everyone who has supported our students throughout the year. So thank you.
Thank you to all the presenters. Oh, Dr. Sortino's up here, good, because I have a couple questions. It's a shame that we had to have such two meaty presentations on the same night, because we could really dig in, and just in fair warning, I may ask one or two of you to come back just to maybe drill down. But Dr. Walker, if you don't mind if I ask you just two quick questions, and then I'll open it up to the board. And I do have questions for the other folks as well, but did you notice anything? I mean, those are all great numbers. We love seeing that report. It's, a good news story. I'm curious if you had seen any impact to COVID in some of your data. That's my first question. And the second question is there a consideration or a thought to changing some of the college search? The students that are in school now, in college now, or going into college, they're entering a workforce that's in large part remote. They no longer have to go to schools necessarily in the Northeast to work in the Northeast. They can live wherever they want and work wherever they want. So I'm just curious if there'll be a trend to keep an eye on to see. You were very instrumental in bringing in schools that we typically didn't bring into the high school, which has been very successful, and you found some real diamonds out there, real gems that students didn't know about. And I wonder if there's going to be a trend to bring in some more of those diamonds in the rough that our students don't know about, because they don't have to work, they don't have to live where they work anymore.
For sure, yeah. So there's definitely, the numbers were definitely impacted by the pandemic. So there was a little bit of an increase in, or I should say a little bit of a decrease in the number of students going to four-year schools. Not significant, but it was a little higher. Some students did choose to defer a year, take a gap year. We had a couple students who took part in the bridge program that was offered. So that had an influence on the numbers for sure. There's a little bit of uncertainty in the application process now, especially with all the test optional schools. There's a little uncertainty on even using the scatograms on, where do you fit in terms of students in Chatham High School who got accepted to these schools or not, because you don't have those test scores necessarily if you're not applying those. And not just in our school, but in many high schools, the grades over the last 2 years were a little higher than they normally are. There was a lot more flexibility with assignments and things like that, so we see GPAs are a little higher than they typically were. So it's again, influencing how you read those scatograms. So it's all having a little bit of an impact, and we're still seeing really radical changes in terms of schools that went from what were very high acceptance rates down to very low acceptance rates that weren't normally on that list. I gave Northeastern as an example. So there's definitely some trends happening there. Counselors have been really talking to these admissions reps to get a feel for what they're seeing and how we can adjust for that. So that's been happening for sure. We are constantly looking to expand, where kids look and their options out there. The reality of it is that you see most of our students stay on the East Coast is they don't want to be that far from home. That really is what they tell us, and we try to follow their lead on it. So I haven't seen, I used to think years ago we would start to see when online schooling started happening, we would start to see satellite campuses for some of these major universities where, you can get degrees from, say Stanford but not have to go out there. Don't see that really taking off just yet, but I imagine we're starting to see this whole remote work and learning really start to kind of explode. So we're kind of keeping an eye on that.
Great. Does anybody else have any questions for Dr. Walker? No, we might reserve the right to pull you back, though, because these are both meaty presentations. Great, thank you. And Dr. Sortino, just moving on to your presentation, I have to tell you, this is pretty much what keeps the board up at night, is the mental health. I mean, if we mess up a curriculum, you know, we'll probably survive. If we mess up the school start times or the calendar, we'll probably survive. But it's your world that keeps us up at night, because if we screw that up, it has obviously life-altering impacts. So I'm curious, we often joke about, oh, Chatham's in a bubble. In this instance, Chatham's not in a bubble. We follow the trends, we follow the norm. We are 60% increase in our mental health. I'm curious, in some of those numbers you mentioned, you did 125 risk assessments. If you could just give us the number, what that compares to, say, 5 years ago. And I'm also wondering, are some of those students, or the percentage of those students, never on your radar? You know, the concern is, yeah, who are we missing? Who are we slipping through the cracks, or who was like, oh my goodness, that student was hospitalized, they were on nobody's radar. I think that's what really keeps us up at night. We're happy that you're catching, you know, through the email system and through all of those wonderful programs. I mean, that's fantastic. It's who are we missing? And you also mentioned it that there's most at-risk categories. You did it by categories. Can we target some of our, you said the most at-risk was the LGBTQ plus community. Can we target some of our resources to ensure that that group, you know, has a percentage more resources because they are more at risk? So I'm just curious, you know, what you think in terms of those. And the summer program was a huge success, the summer program that you had at the high school. And can we expand that? It was 43 students at middle school and 31 students. I would venture to say that most of the incoming freshmen could benefit from something like that. So how do we get that to expand? I know that was a lot, I apologize. But as I said, this is the topic that keeps us up at night for sure.
I would say the one positive that I looked at through the presentation was that 8% of students had identified as feeling suicidal, and that's approximately 120 students, and we've completed 125 risk assessments. So we look at it as, Mrs. Latarullo and I look at it like, we are identifying the kids that potentially are at risk of harming themselves through securely, through teacher feedback, through counseling professionals, through 504s and IEPs. So that was the one positive that I would look at out of all of that data. That's one. And two, Mrs. Latarullo and Mrs. Leister are fabulous at working on the Summer Connect program, and they're in the process now of opening up to see what students would benefit from that. So I can absolutely provide them with that feedback.
Okay, great. And can parents, like, how do kids sign up for the Summer Connect program?
So last year they did open it up to parents, and I believe they're looking right now to decide, you know, what would be the best system for that. And they're looking at the timing of it as well, because last summer it was difficult with sports. Some of the students came back early and that interfered with it. So they also want to look at different dates so that there's not a conflict of any kind.
Okay, great.
And the program, just to be clear, is only for students entering 6th and 9th grade, correct, right now?
I had talked to them also about new students to the district, students returning, anyone that would potentially benefit from it. So I think it's pretty flexible in that way.
Question. In the slides, you had 21 out of 125 going through the second level of review, but then you had 25 getting hospitalized. So it seems like there was 4 at least, assuming there's...
There were definitely students that we had sent out that were then hospitalized. In the beginning of the year, Dr. LaSouza, we had looked at potential agencies to contract with to do these types of clearances. So we did enter into a contract with Tri-County as well as with St. Clair's. The benefit of St. Clair's was that if a student required a psychiatric bed, that they would help assist the family in finding them a bed, which if you've seen the news right now, it is extremely hard to find a psychiatric facility if your child needs one. There's a tremendously long waiting list. So for St. Clair's, that was the benefit of contracting with them. So some of the students that we sent out for clearances were hospitalized through that process, and some students were hospitalized privately through their families, and those are the 24 that we know about. There may be more. Some families obviously don't want to share with that.
No, I mean, I guess following up on what Jill was saying in terms of what the 21 versus the 25, is that, so you're saying that people could have been they didn't necessarily come through our process.
Correct.
As identified.
Yes.
Got
It's a combination.
Okay.
One thing that I just want to make sure that we're being really consistent about is professional development for all our teachers and staff and paraprofessionals that work with all students, not just our special education population. Mental health does not have one face, and oftentimes, you know, people think it looks one way when it really doesn't look like anything. And I think we need to do this annually so that teachers are always looking for new ways to identify their students and know how to report, and know that even if they're off base and they're completely wrong and the kid is fine, it's okay. You're always better to report than not to report. And I just think it's something that we need to keep putting in front of the people, because teachers see these kids more than sometimes their parents do. They're in school all day. And, they may go home, and go in their room and do their homework, but when you're in school, you are in front of a teacher, you are in your class. And so anything we can do to help our teachers and staff be more confident and feel comfortable in the reporting process.
Any other questions? Mr. Henderson, real quick on a couple of your programs, if you don't mind. The Lynx program and the Sandy Hook program are fairly new, or the Lynx program is revised new, and the Sandy Hook program, which we're huge fans of. I'm just curious, how do you assess those since they're new? So you had the freshmen go through it. Are you going to ask them for feedback and say, yes, this was helpful, no, this wasn't? What was the most helpful? What was the least helpful? What would you change? Same thing with the Sandy Hook, it starts with Hello program. So
Yep.
how do you do an assessment and, see if it's doing what you think it's doing?
Great question. So for the Sandy Hook program, which was completely new, we did issue a pre-program survey and then a post-program survey, asking students about, what they had learned, their knowledge about certain topics coming into the program, how comfortable they would feel, talking to a staff member if they had concerns. So we did collect data through the Sandy Hook program. With the Lynx program, we meet every week with the Lynx leaders, so we've been collecting a lot of anecdotal feedback about what lessons the students responded to, which ones they may not have been interested in, and that's a lesson that we tweak or maybe get rid of for the following year. But we can certainly survey the ninth graders to get hard data and feedback about their Lynx experience.
Yeah, I would be curious with the ninth graders, we don't want to keep programs that are obviously not effective, which I'm not saying this isn't, but I think the people that can tell you if it's most effective are the ninth graders.
Absolutely.
Right, so I think, an anonymous survey or a few key questions may help steer you to, tweak the program a little bit. I mean, I like that there's two leaders, with a group of 10 and 12 instead of a single leader.
Right.
I think that's very helpful and diffuses some of the pressure in the group. So if we can maybe get some, more data on that. That really goes to Dr. Sorrentino as well. The programs that we offer are phenomenal, but we want to make sure that we assess that they're effective, and we want to make sure that we're spending our resources effectively. So if something is, not as effective as it was 3 years ago, and I suspect they change, as times change. So as long as we have, and I don't need an answer now, as long as we have a mechanism to ensure each program individually is effective, not just say, a shotgun of we do 50 things. Well, if we only do 10 of them well, then the other 40 are not well spent on our resources. So again, not looking for an answer, just looking that we continuously evaluate and make sure that our resources, and tell us where we need more. This is where we found to be most effective and we need X, Y, or Z. So that's where we're going to need you to communicate back to us and where we need to shuffle resources. And by resources, I mean money. Right. Does anybody else have any questions? Or again, these are action-packed and very good presentations. Yeah, they're fantastic presentations. Thank you for, well, you had to be here, but thank you for coming out and giving those presentations to us. So thank you again. And I know you're on your 16th hour of your day, so don't feel bad if you sneak out the door. Not you, Dr. Sorrentino, sorry. Back to you, Dr. Lususa.
Sure thing. Yes, thanks to Dr. Sortino and Dr. Walker and Mr. Henderson. And one of the reasons we had both presentations tonight is that we only have one more board meeting after this, and we'll have the discipline report that Lori Gironda and Anthony Giaconia typically do. That's a state requirement once a year, so that's why we had to cram things in tonight. The only other item under my report is the calendar discussion for the 23-24 school year. Where we left off last time is that you had asked me to circulate among our parents the three options, and essentially there's one with a very early start on August 24th, one with a medium start on August 28th, and one with a later start on August 30th. I sent the results to you all over the weekend or in the board memo. So basically the option that got the most number 1 votes was calendar 3 with the later start. The option that got the most first or second choice votes was the second one, the medium one, and the one with the earliest start was the least popular. So I'll let you carry it away from there.
Yeah, that's
and
no surprise.
determine what you would like to do.
Does the board mind if we hold that off to board business and then we can vote on it then? It's not on the agenda, correct?
No, it's just an update so that
Okay.
you can,
What's that?
I don't think we're voting.
We could.
This is for 23, 24.
This is for 23, 24.
We have time.
We could vote on it. Nothing's stopping us. But do you mind if we hold it off till board business for discussion? Are you guys okay with that? Okay, excellent. Okay, Dr. LeSouza, anything else?
that's it,
That's
I
it.
think, for me for now.
Okay, Ms. Gilbert, over to you for construction update.
The 4 construction projects that are funded in the 22-23 budget will all commence at the end of June once school is completed. In addition, the roof project at the middle school that was not done last summer due to the material shortages will be completed this summer. All projects are scheduled to be completed in mid-August, so the buildings will be ready for the start of school. And that's all I got.
Okay, thanks. I appreciate that. And Peter said you were going to report out on a few other items like the track, the bathrooms, the southern bull. I'm just teasing you.
No, he didn't.
Just teasing you, Tatiana. Thank you for filling in for Peter. I know it's not your favorite thing, but thank you.
What are you talking about?
Moving over to committee reports, Ms. Ciccarelli for personnel.
Yes, we have not met since our last board meeting. We are meeting on June 8th.
Ms. Clark, curriculum.
Yes, curriculum committee met on April 27th. We had further discussion regarding the new health and PE standards, and the discussion was led by supervisors Ms. Lattarulo and Ms. Leister. The committee again had opportunities to ask questions regarding the new standards and how the implementation what it will look like in our schools. At the time, there had been a pause by the state for a further review of the standards. However, since the committee met, the Department of Education has released guidance that the standards are to stand as they were originally written. We are continuing to explore best practices at each grade level. Parents will have access to all learning and curriculum materials prior to instruction and will have the option to opt their child out of any or all lessons. Information will be sent to parents directly from each school. And Ms. Lattarulo and Mrs. Leister are doing, I hope I'm explaining this right, but there's, with my teacher hat on, it's called Screencastify, but for someone who doesn't know what that is, it's like a pre-recording or a voiceover. So every student will have the same exact lesson. Parents will have the ability to listen to it. You will hear, just for the purpose of consistency. Obviously, teachers will be in the room guiding the lesson and moving the students through the slides and whatnot. But for this year, at this time, we feel that this is going to be the best way to be able to expose them to both sides of it. To have parents who wish to view the material, you will hear exactly what your child will hear, and every child will hear the same thing. In addition, at that meeting, Dr. Walker and Ms. Slade from Chatham High School gave an update on a potential transition for the college search and application software, which is we currently use Naviance at Chatham High School. And they were exploring different options to move to a different alternative platform that was believed to be more beneficial on both student and administration and counseling side. This is now put on pause until the 23-24 school year. We just don't feel that we have enough time for this transition to move efficiently to allow for our rising seniors next year to be fully online with the target date of August 1st. So we're going to kind of table it, and we'll hear more about this probably early in the fall next year in preparation for this transition. And that was it. It was a very long and informative meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Smith, over to you for finance.
Yes, Finance and Facilities has not met. We're meeting on June 6th.
This is the first time in about 10 years we've had a different finance chair, so
Yeah.
good luck.
Thank you.
Policy and Planning, Mr. Ryan.
Policy has not met. We are meeting next week.
Excellent, thank you. And I'll probably shuffle the committees around a little bit to slot you in, Ying Liu, so I just need a little time. I'll send out an email and float that around. Liaison reports, anybody have anything they want to share? Susan?
We just wanted to report and say thank you to CEF for hosting its first live in-person get-together on, it was called Cinco de Thank You on Cinco de Mayo, and many of us on the board attended. It was a lovely event, and it was to honor people that established family endowments for CF projects, and we had a lovely time getting together, and we look forward to doing more of those hopefully in the future. And congrats to Sally Allen, who will be ending her reign as president soon, but we're very thankful to her for all her efforts this year and during the pandemic. That's it.
Great, thank you, Susan, I appreciate that. Yeah, it was a lovely evening. Anything else from anybody? Nope. Okay, excellent. So then I'm going to make a motion to pass the minutes of the April 25th public and executive session. If Ms. Zhang and Mr. Ryan could abstain.
I'll second.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Motion carries 602.
2.
602.
Great, thank you. Excellent. So it's been a bit, sorry about the long wind-up, but we have our first opportunity for public commentary. Hearing of the citizens during the public commentary section of the agenda is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are or are not topics scheduled for tonight's meeting. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers will be asked to limit their comments to a reasonable length of time. And again, this is just a reminder, it's not a back and forth. I'll try and take notes. It's your opportunity to make a comment, compliment, questions. If there's a question, we'll try and answer it at the end after we close the public commentary. So if you could introduce yourself first, that would be great, and the floor is yours, and we won't interrupt.
Hi, I'm Katrina Keeshan. I'm one of the art teachers at the middle school, and on behalf of the 8 district art teachers, I just wanted to invite the board and the public at large to our, well, it's our 6th annual art show, but the last 2 years, because of COVID, have been virtual, so we're happy to be in person again. And the art show is 2 nights, Monday the 23rd and Tuesday the 24th at the middle school from 6:30 to 8:30. In the past, it's been a very successful event. I would say well over 1,000 public have been there, and I could speak to the middle school. We have about 70 artworks from each grade level, so the students are excited for everyone to come out, and it's a nice viewing of a transition of artwork from K to 12. And we have awards, giveaways, refreshments, art activity tables that will be manned by our senior interns, demonstrations by elementary students, and we also have orchestra students performing as well on both nights. The high school art teachers asked me to mention their award-winning artworks that will be featured. There was recently a Teen Arts Festival where 12 of 25 submissions received recognition, and I want to honor those students by mentioning them. We had 4 first-place winners: Sophia Paparo, Yeru Zhao, Jasmine Lewin, Ava Neshi. 2 second-place submissions: Kyle Beebe, Isabel Lewin. 3rd place for Ella Jones, Nate Thompson, Ethan Versch, and 3 honorable mentions: Bryn Hammerschmidt, Charlotte Bandicow, Ariana Karanen. And there was also a lot of winners from the nation's longest running and most prestigious recognition program for creative teens, which is the Scholastic Art Awards. Silver Key for Emma Battalion, Jasmine Lewin, Clary Zhao, and Mariana Zignan. And all of these artworks will be featured at the art show, so that's further reason to come. And some honorable mentions to Samantha Greenwood, Ella Jones, Willie Chan, Annie Druitt, Muda Krishnan, Jasmine Lewin, Yuri Zhao, and Mariana Zigman. And a special shout out to Jasmine Lewin, one of our seniors, whose portfolio was selected out of a field of finalists from the Art Administrators Emerging Artists Exhibition, Governor's Award, and she'll be at the award ceremony in Trenton. So something positive. We're excited for this and hope everyone can attend one of the nights. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. I'm Deirdre Rajapi. I live in the township, and I have two daughters, 16 and 14. And this is my first time speaking, and I want to welcome the new board member. I want to thank you for everything that you do. I know you put your heart and soul into this school, and it's certainly appreciated. One thing I wanted to mention is my concern about a lesson given to the 11th grade students in the health class. The health teacher showed the students a website called the Safe Zone Project, and the website lists LGBTQ plus vocabulary glossary of terms. And according to this website, the list is, quote, an ever-improving list of definitions for terminology relating to LGBTQ plus identities and people, sexualities, and genders. So the health teacher instructed the students to find 3 terms, define them, and discuss amongst themselves ones they don't know. And I just picked 3. One of them is down low, typically referring to men who identify as straight but who secretly have sex with men. The other one is MSM-WSW, men who have sex with men or women who have sex with women to distinguish sexual behavior from sexual identities, because a man is straight doesn't mean that he is not having sex with men. And another one I found was sex assigned at birth, a phrase used to intentionally recognize a person's assigned sex, not a gender identity. This really has nothing to do with health or science, but is a sexual ideology that is inappropriate and a threat to our children's emotional and mental well-being. It will create confusion in their minds and has potential to create unnecessary anxiety and depression. And desensitizing children to sexual topics will put them to greater risk of sexual abuse. And I don't feel that this ideology has any place in the public school. Schools need to educate our children and the academics, and to help them know how to think critically and not what to think. And I just feel that this is very damaging to our children. And there are other concerned parents and grassroots organizations that are emerging as a result of this indoctrination taking place in our classrooms. And we're going to hold everybody accountable and watch how you vote and you respond to our concerns. So thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Cheryl Whitney. I'm the Grants Chair of the Chatham Education Foundation. And first, I want to say, to comment on the art show, I am so excited the art show is happening again this year. My family, on a personal level, has always enjoyed going to it. And it actually, I believe, started as a grant from Chatham Education Foundation. They bought the panels that allowed the art show to come into being. So excited about that. I'm here today because I've got a check with me for $14,562.79.
Wow.
And it's for 3 grants, and I'm so thrilled to be here on behalf of CEF to give the check. The first grant, I was going to tell you a little bit about the grants today. The first grant is the Scientific Investigation and Collaboration Classroom, and that was brought by teachers Emily Cafaro and Rebecca Ryan. The grant enables the district to transform 2 science classrooms at the high school. Those of you who have been following this all know, the Chatham Education Foundation has transformed 9 math classrooms now at the high school and the middle school, and this will do the same for the first time to 2 science classrooms at the high school. These classrooms will have different furniture than a traditional classroom, including whiteboard tables, and it creates a more collaborative space to further investigative learning. One of the grant teachers shared, students are consistently completing labs and investigations which require them to share their data analysis and results as well as evaluate peer work. Redesigning the classroom and incorporating whiteboard tables would enable students to easily work together through an investigation and share their findings. The second grant is Let Our Fingers Do the Popping, and that was the brainstorm of Milton Avenue School teacher Leanne Wortham. She had a great idea to use a math manipulative to help kindergarten and first grade students. Ms. Wortham applied for a grant with 5 other teachers from Milton. With the help of math supervisor Erin Yamamoto, we were able to expand the grant, and now 20 teachers at Milton, SBS, and Washington will have math manipulatives for their kindergarten and first grade students, and that will help them understand the relationships between numbers and quantities and aid in their addition and subtraction skills. Finally, Chatham Middle School teacher Lynn Collier applied for the third grant, Read for Pure Joy. This grant adds alternative, comfortable reading locations in a 6th and 7th grade classroom at the middle school, where small group ELA is taught to struggling students. Ms. Collier explains that when students are comfortable and relaxed, it contributes to a joyful reading experience, which leads to longer sustained periods of reading and a positive connotation with reading. And the supervisor for student support services, Dr. Kimberly Lanza, told me, "I can't wait to see our middle school students getting comfy and settling in with their books. We are fortunate to have the support of the Chatham Education Foundation." So we have one grant cycle left for the year in June, and this coming cycle is going to be huge. The deadline for applications was Sunday, and we have 9 grant applications for this coming cycle, totaling over $51,000. So this is going to be a great grant cycle coming up. We typically give about $100,000 a year in grants, and this year we're on track to give more. So far, with the grants we are giving today, we've given over $78,000. So we've got about $22,000 left in our grant budget and $51,000 in pending grant applications that we're reviewing. So our spring appeal is going on now, as is our teacher tributes event, where parents can make a donation to Chatham Education Foundation in honor of their teacher, and the teacher gets a note and a chocolate from CEF. Because of COVID, we haven't been able to have our traditional fundraising events, so we're extremely grateful to all our donors who donate through the annual appeal. So if anyone is interested in donating to the Chatham Education Foundation and supporting any of these grants and the 9 to come, we'd love to get your support. Our website is www.chathamedfoundation.org. So that's for all that are listening, perhaps online and otherwise. So thank you again to our donors, and thank you to all of you for all of your support and for everything you do to help our students reach higher. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Carla Banducci. I'm a Chatham Township resident and a Chatham mom. And I'm here to talk about my concerns regarding the new NSES, the National Sex Education Standards, specifically the NSES indicator, GI 5, CC1, CC2, CC3, CC4. For grades 4 through 6, because my children will be between those grades. CC1 is they'll be taught to distinguish between sex assigned at birth and gender identity and explain how they may or may not differ. 2 is define and explain differences between cisgender, transgender, gender, non-binary, gender expansive, and gender identity. 3 is explain the gender expression and gender identity exists along the spectrum. And 4, describe gender role stereotypes and their potential impact on self and others. Specifically, these 4, to me, these subjects such as gender and distinguishing sex defined at birth are not traditionally taught subjects. The way these subjects are being proposed to be taught to young students directly contradicts, in my opinion, the earliest teachings in a basic biology class. They represent social, moral, and personal preference issues. Such social and morality issues should be and have always been the responsibility of the parents. Having these subjects taught in a classroom by teachers, all of which might have different morality compass than the parents, let social issues, in my opinion, creep into child core education. So my question is, why is public school trying to control this specific narrative? By doing this, I feel like they take parental guidance and my job away from me. What if my viewpoint or moral belief system is not the same? What if? If this kind of control is being taken away from the parents, from people like me, I'm afraid and I wonder what else will be taken away from us. Those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Carla. Oh, yes. Carla, thank you. You reminded me, if you spoke, if you wouldn't mind signing in, that would be great. I should have reminded folks at the beginning.
Libby Hilsenrath, Chatham Borough. Following up on that same subject, there was a human sexuality assignment in 11th and 12th grade, Understanding Gender, with the origin of gender, a video that students had to watch, and then they had to match definitions to the corresponding items. Asexual, binary system, bisexual, cisgender, gay, gender expression, gender identity, intersex, lesbian, non-binary, pansexual, queer, questioning, sexual orientation, transgender, transitioning, and two-spirit. And according to New Jersey Statute 18A:35-4.35, part of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards, a Board of Education shall include instruction on the political, economic, and social contributions of persons with disabilities and lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender people in an appropriate place in the curriculum of the middle school and high school students as part of the district's implementation of the New Jersey Student Learning Standards. I don't see where in that statute that it says anything about matching those terms and teaching students those terms. The Student Learning Standards, as I've said, and as you know, give you a guideline of what students are supposed to learn at each grade level. They do not dictate what curriculum you are to include. This curriculum goes too far, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Libby.
Good evening. My name is Nicole Lewis. I live in Chatham Township. Not only the lesson that Deirdre referenced, but that Carla brought up and Libby brought up with all of these, and Mrs. Clark, maybe this is specifically for you, but certainly I'd like to hear an answer from anyone who could comment. You talked earlier about the transparency of the health lessons and what the school's plan is going forward to provide a presentation with voiceovers, make sure it's consistent. So my question is, what is the plan to expand that to all of the subjects? Deirdre mentioned an exercise in 11th grade, so how would those specific lessons plans that we've heard about tonight fit into this planned communications that will be going to parents?
We'll address questions at the end. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mrs. Lewis.
Good evening, Bill Heap, Chatham Borough. Some random comments. First, I'm going to put my JC hat on and announce our Fisher Whack race, Saturday, June 11th. Fun run at 9 o'clock and the more serious run at 9:30. We kick off Fisher Whack Day. It's a great family event, and you can sign up online. We are also going to have our awards dinner on Thursday, June 9th at the Chatham Township Firehouse. We have identified an award winner. I'm not at liberty to disclose right now, but that will be coming shortly. And we have also identified 2 scholarship winners from Chatham High School. And they will be, the grants will be awarded at the dinner. I missed the excitement last meeting when I had to leave to attend the Post Office Plaza hearing, but I would like to thank Mr. Gilfillan for his long tenure, all his volunteer hours, and I hope he is especially remembered for his part in keeping the schools open. It was a really courageous decision, and I'd like to welcome the new member. Volunteers are, of course, why everybody wants to move to this town. With regard to the presentations, especially with mental health, I don't know that it's possible, but I really hope somebody comes up with a way to deal with social media. I think that's a big driver in what is going on. Silicon Valley has unleashed a monster. They know it. And I don't know what the solution is. My personal solution is to stay away from it. I know that that's not viable for everybody else, but I guess at this point it's up to parents to try and keep a lid on it. And I think that might go a long way to addressing some of these problems. On a personal note, I attended my 50th high school reunion on Saturday night in the Bronx. 54 years ago when I started there, the place was on fire, but I met some guys that I hadn't seen in 50 years, and it was like I never left. I was thinking about the Chatham High School class of 2022. They will be celebrating their 50th reunion in 2072. And some of them might even make it to the end of the century, which I think is astounding. I hope they don't forget where they came from, and I hope that they find their way back at some point, like I did. I had 3 years worth of Latin. I forgot most of it, but I can tell you this: Tempus fugit. Thanks.
Thanks, Bill.
Libby Hills and Rat Chatham Borough again. Is the speaker limit 3 minutes?
Well, when there's not that many folks in the audience, we don't really set the clock.
Okay.
You know, we say reasonable time, so 3 to 5.
Okay, so I can add some more time.
Yeah,
Great.
a couple. You know, if you could keep it to a couple minutes, that'd be great. Just
All
because
right,
it's a
good.
late night, but let me just so you know. I mean, you're here at enough meetings. We try and only limit the time when we know there's 20, 15, 20 speakers. But when there's 5 people speaking, if you want to take 5 minutes,
Okay.
take 5 minutes.
Well, along that same line, then I'd like to ask, why now? It used to be at Board of Education meetings, as you just said. I've been coming for a long time. It used to be a back and forth conversation, and it isn't now. And I don't think that's as constructive as it used to be. Now it's like you say what you want, you sit down, and then we wait until we maybe get a question answered. So I don't know why that changed. I don't think it's as constructive as it used to be. But specifically my question, Michelle Clark from the Curriculum Committee, she said parents for the 2020 sex education standards will have the instruction, correct me if I'm wrong, provided online for the parents or somehow before the kids learn it, so that the parents will know what they're going to be taught before they're taught it, and they can opt their child out. Again, correct me if I'm wrong, but are you allowing parents to see this curriculum before the students do? And if that's the case, can we do that for every other curricular area? That's what it sounded like to me, that they'll be able to see what the kids are going to learn for the new sex curriculum standards, and they will be able to opt their kids out. And if that's the case, we should do that for all curricular areas. Allow the parents to see the curriculum, not the program of studies, which really doesn't tell you what they're learning, not the syllabus, but the actual materials that are going to be posted on Schoology or Google Classroom or anywhere else. Parents have a right to know that, and we can get it through an OPA request, FERPA, or the Parent-Pupil Rights Act. But I think it would be easier if it was all in one place for parents to see before their kids learn it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any additional public commentary? I think we hit everybody for the most part. Nope. Everybody's good over there? Okay, great. So we're going to close the public commentary. There's another opportunity at the end. So I'm going to try to address the items that I can. I'll obviously punt some of the curriculum stuff over to Dr. LaSousa since he is the expert in the room. Related to the art show, it is a phenomenal show. I just need to say, if you've never been to it, it starts on the right-hand side closest to the office in the gym, and it works itself over to the double gym. And it actually is art show through the years. It starts with the pre-K and kindergarten and goes through all the elementary schools, then Lafayette, then middle school, and then you get all the way to the left and you see some of these students work, and they're in these capstone advanced classes, and it is phenomenal. It is amazing to see this art show. So if you get a chance, even if you only spend 15 minutes there and go from the right side to the left side, it's just amazing transformation to see in the students in the art program in the district here. So thank you. Deirdre, thank you for coming. First time, long-time listener, first-time caller, so that was awful nice. I'd have to say I don't agree with that the curriculum is a threat to anybody's well-being, but Dr. LaSousa can dig into it. And, you know, some of you folks throw out the word indoctrination. I don't believe that anybody's being indoctrinated by curriculum. Just because you say it doesn't make it so. This was very similar to, Libby, to your lawsuit that cost the taxpayer thousands, tens of thousands of dollars. Just because you say we're indoctrinating somebody into it doesn't make it true. And in fact, I think it's quite false and inflammatory. Cheryl, thank you for the gifts. Oh, she may have left. CEF, that's fantastic, so thank you. Oh,
she's over here.
Oh, there she is, way over there. Thank you, Cheryl. It's fantastic. $100,000 a year in grant donations. I mean, the support the CEF gives and all the residents in Chatham, we really couldn't run a lot of the programs, and I'm sure the science department was very jealous about the math department's fun furniture, so I'm sure you'll get more requests from all the disciplines. So thank you for all your hard work and your team's hard work. Carla, I'm just trying to do it in order. That's why I'm jumping around a little bit. Thank you also for speaking. The public schools are certainly not trying to control the narrative. Yours is the simplest question to answer. The schools have to deliver the curriculum set by the state. It's as simple as that. We have leeway in what we use to deliver that message, but it's, again, I'm going to let Dr. LaSousa talk on this further, but we're bound by the state statutes to deliver the curriculum set by the state. Certainly not trying to take away any parents' rights, and this particular curriculum is the only curriculum that parents can opt out of. You can simply opt out. So if it's not in liking with your beliefs or for whatever reason, you can opt out of it. Mrs. Lois, I think health lessons, it's again similar to that. We teach what the state standards are. Mike will touch on that a little bit more. Bill, thank you again for your comments, dear JCs. You did miss some fireworks with Mr. Gilfillan's departure. There was not a dry eye in the house. I think even Ryan was crying back there a little bit. So he did bring the house down, and we're going to miss him. Dr. Zhang, we're happy to have you aboard, so, you know, we're going to miss Matt, but I'm sure we'll forget about him as soon as Dr. Zhang gets rolling again. But he was a great addition. He's been on the board 13 or 14 years, so thank you for remembering and mentioning Matt. Let's see. Mrs. Sildner, I think we're down. Yep, Mrs. Sildner. The Q&A, I've been president for about 10 years, and I always remember doing it this way. I think it's a more efficient, effective way. If the board wants me to change, I can change, but that's up to the board to decide. They'll let me know. I find it more efficient because a lot of topics, and this is a good example, 3 or 4 of you spoke on a similar topic. So instead of going back and forth with each one, it's easier to encapsulate it in one response, and Dr. LaSousa can answer all of you or address all of your concerns at one time. So I do the bidding of the board, so if they want me to change, I'll change, but as long as I'm facilitating the meetings, I find this a more efficient manner. I don't know if any board member wanted to add, or if we want to send it over to Dr. LaSousa for now. Michelle, do you want to add, or you want to?
I mean, the only thing I wanted to say, so there's the health and PE standards, parents have an opt-out option, and also it's science dissection, right? Or if we're ever dissecting an animal, and that's against your belief system. Those are the 2. Can you verify that, please?
Correct.
Okay,
Yep.
Thank you. So it's not just the...
It's not just which, I'm sorry.
It's not just health and PE. There's a science opt-out option, but it has to relate to dissection.
Correct.
Okay,
So,
I just wanted to make sure we were correct.
Yes, I forgot the dissecting a frog. You can also
Yes, if it's not.
opt out of.
yes, so there are standards set by the state, and that's a relatively recent development. Up until the 1990s, there were no standards set by the state. But that's part of the accountability movement and the, insistence that school districts all are on the same page and delivering the same set of expectations to students across the state, regardless of what state you're in. So we don't have there's no optionality with respect to meeting the standards. As a public school district, we must meet the standards. We design a curriculum that meets the standards, and the curriculum contains the materials, the lesson plans, some of which were referenced tonight. I would need to look into them. But the way we meet the standards is up to us, and of course, some of our courses, or many of them, may exceed the standards. We have AP courses at Chatham High School that are based more on the College Board learning expectations than they are necessarily on the state of New Jersey. All of our curriculum is available online, and we try to be pretty comprehensive about which resources, in terms of whether it's novels or what we're reading in classes or what have you. We're in the process of updating those documents so that there's more consistency across disciplines, because many of them take, they're the result of years of revisions, but we're brushing those up. I think that the reference or the statement that Ms. Clark made about giving parents access to the materials, that was specific to the sex education, family life component of the health curriculum that we have. And the reason for that is that there are only two things that a parent can opt out of. One is the sex education / family health, and the other, and that's embedded in statute someplace, and the other is the dissection of animals. But there aren't, if we're doing quadratic equations tomorrow in algebra class, that's not something that a parent can just say, I don't want my child involved with quadratic equations. So the goal was, after we had our meeting, the curriculum committee met a couple weeks back, was to provide parents the resources like the PowerPoint presentation or what have you, or the worksheet for the family life sex ed ahead of time. Lafayette's the only school left in the district that has a health unit remaining, I believe, with family life, at least for all students. And then moving forward, we plan to do that next year when we officially roll out the 2020 revisions. I don't think it would be feasible to try to ask every teacher in the district to supply every type of presentation they give or resource they use in the class ahead of time. It would just be impossible for teachers to do that. But having said that, we can be as transparent and comprehensive as possible in the curriculum profiles that we have online, so folks know what topics are being discussed, what materials are being read, and so on and so forth. So that's what I would.
And the opt-out option expands, I'm going to say pre-K, but I'm sure it's not applicable, K through 12.
K-12.
K-12, okay, so.
And some of the standards, Mike, are being reviewed by the Department of Education. Is that true or not true?
Not true that I know of.
Okay.
They said they're fine.
So in September, they'll roll out whatever was new for 2022.
Correct.
Okay. Can you turn on Mike Ryan's mic, please? A lot of mics in that sentence.
Dr. LaSousa, in terms of family health and sex education, it seems to me, and I think part of the problem that some of the audience has been talking about is, it seems that most of this is driven by the agenda of acceptance of other people with different gender identifications. So is there a way we can teach acceptance without teaching slang like down low and other things like that? I agree. If it's true, some of those things may be inappropriate.
Again, I don't know I'd have to look into that particular lesson. The short answer to your question is we have to meet the standard. So and it's the state standard, not a national model that the state standard might be based on. We have to meet the standard, and if the standard doesn't contain that type of vocabulary, we would not need to incorporate that in our program. But again, I'd have to understand what the objective was, what the website is, and find out from the teacher why that was utilized in this particular case.
Okay, great. Thank you.
But Mike makes a good point. Mr. Ryan makes a good point. I just wanted to read one of the standards. The core idea is all individuals should feel welcome and included regardless of their gender expression, or sexual orientation, and that's the core idea. And then the specific performance expectation is demonstrate ways to promote dignity and respect for all people. And that's what we have to implement.
Right.
So, you know, it's just common sense. We want kids to feel included. We don't want kids to be at risk because they may identify differently than their peers. So, you know, I don't find that offensive. I don't find that indoctrination. I don't find that morally reprehensible. We're just trying to, you know, ensure that kids feel welcome.
Sure. I don't think it's indoctrination either, but it's easy to go too far.
Sure.
Right, so.
But we have to
let's
check on
figure it
that,
out. Yeah.
that language. Excuse me?
And we will check on it.
Yes, yeah, Dr.
Because
Lasusa
we're
said
not
he's going to
ignoring.
check on that. So it's good dialogue. Any other comments or questions? Tatiana, I'm sure you want to weigh in on this? Excellent. Does any of the board members have anything else they want to add on any of those or anything else? Nope. Okay, excellent. We do have another opportunity at the end of, after the agenda for public commentary if something strikes your fancy. So we're going to move over to the regular agenda. Personnel, Ms. Ciccarelli, would you mind?
Yes, I'd like to move action items A1 to A19 on the regular agenda and items A3, 5, 9, and 19 on the addendum. Thanks.
I'll start off just by saying it's been fortunately exceedingly rare that we have a staff member pass while employed in the district. We did have a staff member pass this weekend. That was Jenny Bischoff at Southern Boulevard School. Many of you know her, I know. She'd been sick for a while and has just been a ray of positivity and a terrific person to have on the Southern Boulevard School team. So I just would like to send my condolences on behalf of the school district to her family, her 3 children, all of whom I remember from when they went through Chatham High School, and also to the Southern Boulevard school community at large, because I know they were impacted by her passing this weekend. Second, I am, on the other hand, quite happy to welcome to our administrative team on an acting basis for the next year, Lauren Laporto. This appears on our addendum. Ms. Laporto is a science teacher at Chatham Middle School. She's been with us for 12 years, taught in another district prior to coming to Chatham, and has been closely involved with our current supervisor as a team leader in the sciences. So she's in the audience tonight up in the corner, but we think she's going to make a terrific addition to the team, and we're fortunate that she was willing to step away from the classroom for a year and help us in this regard and, you know, kind of tackle a new set of challenges in a new role. So just want to welcome Lauren. And that's it for my comments on personnel, I think.
Yep.
Okay, I second. Okay. We're good.
No,
We can-
we're good.
We can go
You
ahead and
can
vote.
move on.
701.
Wait,
We have to vote.
We have to vote.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. we have to-
That's okay.
That's okay. It's- I know we're
All in
real
favor?
frustrated.
Aye.
Aye. And then-
Opposed? Abstentions?
Are you going to abstain? Yeah.
Motion carries 701. Sorry about
Okay,
that.
there we go.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, moving on to finance and facilities, Mr. Smith.
Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to move agenda items B1 to B21 to a vote, and also highlight, in addition to the CEF grants that Cheryl spoke about and we're very grateful for, we have a number of other donations, including a Sustainable New Jersey donation for some battery-operated lawn equipment, a CMS box top for education donation, a track and field donation, and a PTO donation at the Chatham High School to cover an outside patio picnic area. So thank you very much.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries
moving on.
701. Sorry.
Perfect. Nope, all good. Moving on to curriculum, Ms. Clark.
Yep. I move curriculum items C1 and 2 for a vote, and there can be no discussion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 701.
And moving on to policy, Mr. Ryan.
Yes, I'd like to move action item D1 on the regular agenda for a vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 701.
Okay, moving on to board business. I don't know what that is, outside of the calendars.
I personally don't want, I'm not comfortable voting, but I don't know how you guys feel.
It's not a time-sensitive vote
Yeah.
for the calendar today, right?
No, it's not time sensitive, other than we'd like to give folks as much leeway as possible, and we had been talking about it for a little while, so, if we could, I'd like to hash it out now, and we're kind of down to 3. So I'd like to talk about it. My preference, Dr. LaSousa has been talking about, changing the start times, and I think there's some middle ground there in that calendar number 2. I wouldn't say it splits the baby entirely, but it gets us partway to, again, the goal of starting the school year earlier is obviously to have as much quality instructional time toward the end of the year after Memorial Day. So I think calendar 2 is a nice compromise. There was some question, a few folks had asked why there wasn't a February break, and sometimes there's a February break, sometimes there isn't. It depends on really how the calendar falls and where the holidays fall. But some of the teachers had expressed, a real need for a break in February, so we kept it in, and there was no option this particular year or that 2023. So we thought it was important to have a break in February. Get kids out of the building, get teachers out of the building, give folks a chance to regroup, so we can look at that for the following calendar, but that's the answer to why we don't have, we have no option with no February break. So does anybody else have any thoughts on any of the other calendars? Again, I thought calendar 2 kind of was a nice compromise.
Calendar 2, actually, the only difference in the start time, you're starting on the Monday instead of the Wednesday.
Correct.
And then you're actually out on that Friday the 14th. You don't have to come back then the following week for the 2 days.
Correct. Yeah, that's correct, Bradley.
Right. But all the breaks and everything look the exact same.
They're pretty similar. Does anybody else? As I'm saying, if there's not a ton of discussion to be had, I'd rather let folks know about the calendar sooner rather than later. There's a lot of events that students sign up for years in advance, especially in the scouting world, and if they don't lock in, they lose out. So if there's, I'll discuss it until June if you want, but if there's no additional discussion, I'd prefer that we take action so that students can plan accordingly.
Which one did the parents select?
I think the latest start time was probably the most favorable, and then a close second, or the calendar 2 received the most first and second choice votes. Correct?
Can you go over that again, Mike? Dr. LaSousa?
Yeah. Sorry. So if you went strictly by first choice, calendar 3 had the greatest number of first choice votes, and calendar 2 was second. If you combine first or second choice together, calendar 2 was the most popular. About 96% of people had calendar 2 as either 1 or 2. And then calendar 3 came in second, with about 85% indicating a first or second choice for calendar 3. And calendar 1 was a distant third.
Yeah, so I would say either 2 or 3 are fine.
If it's a matter of 2 days.
Yeah, it's just going back on the Monday.
Yeah.
I actually like not having to go back in June
again.
for those 2 days to make up.
Yeah.
So.
Being able to graduate on a Friday and have it be a weekend and call it a day.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Calendar
That's
2,
calendar 2.
in my opinion, looks.
Yeah, calendar 2 has to go back on.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the graduation and on the.
You like 2?
Like,
Bradley, you like 2?
Yeah.
Lotta, you like 2?
I like 2.
Care?
Two's fine, I'm indifferent between them.
You like 2? Ying likes 2.
Yeah, good job on you. Excellent.
I just think, I like ending on a Friday.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
For me, it's about, not so much at this point where you start, it's where we finish, and just getting, and not having to come back. June is brutal.
Yeah, if we can avoid graduation on a Friday, I try to, just in case
What is
folks
it
observe.
have it there? Can we, but here it says early dismissal students, well, no, because that would have us on a Friday.
Yeah,
And we have to have graduation on the last day.
yes.
Okay, so,
Yeah. Okay. Well, are folks comfortable moving on the calendar now?
I am.
Sure. So then I'd like to make a motion to put forth calendar 2 for a vote, so if I can get a second.
Second.
So take your pick, Tatiana, on the second.
Take Ann.
So all those in favor of calendar 2? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And if something comes up and we have to change it, it's a couple of years out, but I'd just like to give folks as much lead time as possible where we can. And I thought we could arrive at this one pretty quickly. Great.
Can we get that posted on the website as soon as we can? Thank you.
Thank you. And Mike, thanks for bringing up Jenny Bischoff. She has been that's why I had to step away for a minute. Jenny and I served on a board at Chatham United Methodist years ago. She's volunteered throughout the community. She is an absolute ray of sunshine that just lights up a room. You can't help but laugh with her wide smile when you're in the room with Jenny. So she's going to be sorely missed. I'm sure there's some extremely heavy hearts at Southern Boulevard. If they say heaven only takes the good ones, it doesn't say a whole lot for the rest of us here, but of course they got a good one in Jenny, and it's our loss and heaven's gain. So thank you for remembering Jenny. Any additional items for board business? No. We have our second opportunity for public commentary. If you would like, if you could just introduce yourself again, that would be great.
Hello, Deirdre Rajapi again. I wanted to talk to you about the Policy 2230 course guides. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you, but it mentions Parent Curriculum Advisory Council. Does that exist?
It's called the Board of Education.
Parent Curriculum Advisory, it says parental feedback is gathered through the Parent Curriculum Advisory Council.
I don't think it exists in a formal manner, other than a Board of Education.
Okay, is there something that a council, advisory council could be developed with parents and work with the Board of Ed?
I'm going to let you finish your comments because I'm stepping away from my own.
Okay, that's it. I just noticed that and I just wanted to ask
Thanks.
about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Deirdre.
Hi there. Oh, gosh, that's very loud. Hi, Carolyn Dempsey, Chatham Borough. I'm the liaison to the Chatham Borough Council, to the Board of Ed, but I'm here because I don't think anyone is here from the Chatham Performing Arts Boosters, and I just wanted to publicize a wonderful event that's coming up this Friday, the 20th, Broadway Under the Stars. And the Performing Arts Boosters has just done a phenomenal job. They had an event in December where they partnered with our downtown businesses as well in Chatham Borough. And then they're following that up with Broadway Under the Stars. It's going to be lots of Chatham High vocalists and instrumentalists performing at the gazebo at Reasoner Park, 7:30 this Friday. And you can bring your lawn chairs. The weather's supposed to be beautiful. And again, they're partnering with downtown businesses. You can order dinners or appetizers from Chianti and have them delivered to you there at the gazebo. Scoops is doing a special Sunday for the event, and part of your purchases from either of those goes to the Chatham Performing Arts Boosters. So I just want to thank them. I want to publicize the event. I think it'll be really fun, and everybody come out to the borough, to Reasoner Park at the gazebo this Friday.
Thank you. Excellent. Any additional public comments?
Libby Hilson Rath, Chatham Borough. Apologize if this is repetitive, but I did find you have a policy 2230 called course guides that says that the superintendent shall be responsible for the preparation of course guides, which I haven't been able to find online, and shall develop a plan for such preparation that includes participation of appropriate staff members and resource personnel, continuing research in instructional methods, materials, and activities systematic review of all course guides to ensure their continuing usefulness in achieving goals set by the board, and a system of administrative review to ensure that course guides are being followed by teaching staff members to the degree of conformity desired by the board. Parental feedback is gathered through the Parent Curriculum Advisory Council. So I'd like to know how parents can sign up for this Parent Curriculum Advisory Council, and if it's online, and if it's not, can we get the Curriculum Advisory Council started? Thank you.
Thanks, Libby.
Nicole Lewis. Just going back to my comment, which didn't really get a response, so I am just reading back what Dr. LaSousa, your answer before, you stated that the teachers, there wouldn't be a plan for them to share all of that curriculum and transparency. It would be impossible. Again, no one here tonight is talking about, algebra equations or anything like that. We are talking about topics that, rightly so, parents may fall onto different perspectives and different beliefs. So just to clarify, in case there's any confusion, that's what we are referring to. And we certainly understand, we don't want to create double work. But the reality is the content that is being shared with our children is already on an electronic format. It's already available to be shared. It simply has not been shared. And so if there is, help that you need or volunteers from the parent community, I'm standing here today, I would be happy to help. But I don't know what the impossibility would be, as the existing content is already able to be delivered into the hands of our children, in my case, into my 10-year-old son. And so we're not asking anything that is an undue hardship. Thank you.
I'm Heather Berman. I have a son who's in 11th grade. I really wish that I would have known what the curriculum was this year. I was shocked when I read through the information online that tells about the Chatham curriculum, or even the state curriculum. And I have grandkids that are in 2nd grade. And in 2nd grade, they talk about the penis and blood vessels and fibrous tissue and 3-cylinder spongy tissue. It doesn't have bones, but people talk about erection. Is it called a boner? It goes on and on. It's just really horrible for 2nd graders to be listening to this stuff. They don't even understand sex at that point, nor do they need to know about it. And the 5th grade agenda is worse, and then the 11th grade is bad. So I did meet with the health teacher, and she assured me that in 12th grade that there really isn't anything that is sexual, that they just did that this year. But when I looked at the agenda, I'm thinking she wasn't really completely honest with me. There's one of the things is sexual systems and processes, and just, just a few points. It talks about faking orgasm, sexual relationship, the body when someone is experiencing this stuff and how they behave, and imitating sexual arousal and orgasm. And then there's a PowerPoint on human sexual response cycle. It goes on. Talks about breathing becoming faster. It's really talking about specific sexual things that are going on. And I think if, even boys, they also talk about porn, and that it's not really like that. it's not as perfect as that is, or as perfect as it looks, and they can't have that expectation. And I'm like, I don't believe in kids in high school having sex anyway. I know that sometimes they do, and probably a lot of them do, but that's really kind of against what we teach our kids. And so, yeah, I think even though I can read this now, not having any idea that it was this bad, because I thought, well, we're in Chatham, it's all about education. I mean, they don't need to know how to have sex. I think people have enough hormones and natural instincts that they can figure that out on their own. Nobody ever sat me down and talked to me about having sex. It just happens. And so I think all these specifics is, you know, borderline pornographic, and especially in second grade, that's against the law, really, to put little kids into that kind of situation where you're showing them these movies and these slideshows. And fifth grade's even worse. And I'm thinking, in fifth grade, I don't think they're even hitting puberty yet. And then there's the eighth grade. I mean, I was just astonished as I read through these. I couldn't believe. So I agree with all the stigma on gender as well. When I go to the doctor, I mean, there's two genders. And I believe everybody's different and everybody's unique and everybody has different interests and everybody likes to do different things and they feel different. But I don't think you have to box them into this little gender thing. You can just have them be unique and just accept people for what they believe and who they are. And I think you can do an acceptance thing, and I think it's a much healthier way to go than to have these people. In fact, my son did suffer a lot of depression from this lockdown, and in talking with his counselor, a lot of kids go into this gender thing because it's like the popular thing, because that's what they're teaching in the school and that's what everybody's talking about. And so I think the school influences the kids to kind of go in this little, kind of be put in this box. They, you know, I can't see the benefit of this.
Thank you, Heather. Any other public comments? No? We'll close the public comments. Mr. Ryan, if you wouldn't mind taking, I'm not familiar with policy 2230, so if you wouldn't mind taking that offline with the policy committee and maybe reporting back as it relates to some of the points made by the folks. Councilman Dempsey, thank you for coming to the meeting, and congratulations to your son on Anastasia. He did a great job. We saw him 2 nights, and that's a tough role. He's got some tough songs, some high notes there, but good for him. He stuck it out, and he did a great job, and thank you for the reminder about Broadway Under the Stars. Libby, thank you, 2230. Mr. Ryan's going to take that back. I think Dr. LaSousa addressed the shared content. You know, we can't share everything that every teacher does. I think we share quite a bit, more than most. There's quite a bit out there. So we can talk about that at a future meeting, but I don't know that we can share any more. And it's very fluid. Like a teacher may have 5 lessons and they're going to introduce this one. So it would not be complete, and it's quite fluid. So I don't know that it's feasible or sustainable to put every lesson out there. As it relates to the specific ones, the sex ed ones, you know, there's more information, there's more content because the parents can opt out. That's why there's more content for folks to look at. Thank you, Heather, for your comments. We still have to meet the standards. The simple answer is we have to meet the standards without going, you know, to quote Mr. Ryan here, and ensure that we don't go too far. The curriculum committee looked at the 2nd and 5th grade curriculum, and I didn't see a lot of the words that you mentioned, so we can take a look at that. We didn't see that at all unless I missed it. I didn't think I stepped away during the lesson, but some of the language that you used, I did not see at all, but, you know, we'll continue review and revise without going, again, you know, with being reasonable and not going too far and not straying beyond the lesson itself. So I did, that was it. I don't think we have any additional, Mr. Ryan, did you have something? No. Oh, no, okay.
We have executive session.
We do have an executive session, so thank you. If you could stick around, I think it's going to be brief.
It's action.
No action will be taken, but it'll be brief, fairly brief. Beth, are you joining us, or you don't have to join us for this one?
Yeah.
You are? Oh. Okay, great, thank you. Always welcome.